Many of our first ideas centered around the concept of using one click to pick up the cursor square and align its corner with the corner of the target square, then using clicks to resize and rotate. One idea was having 3 clickable points for each stage of alteration. Another idea included 2 clickable points. We had another very different idea of simply drawing a line with a corner somewhere in the window to draw the cursor square, since that would be the simplest way to convey all 3 dimensions needed to construct a square. We realized this idea was probably illegal. We brainstormed helpful design features we wanted to implement, like highlighting in green when one aspect of alteration was considered close enough. One of the earliest refinements we made was changing the alignment of corners to the alignment of centers. In the draw function in our code, the origin of each square was changed from the top left corner to the center. If we wanted to implement the idea of aligning the cursor square's corner to the target square's corner, we would have to move the origin without moving the geometry, which was hard to do given that none of us had too much knowledge of linear algebra. Therefore, we tweaked our ideas from moving to align corners to moving to align centers. After you match the center, you drag one of the cursor corners to match the corner of the target square. We also added visual cues to tell you where to click to start the next stage of alteration. In our first version, the user hovers over the target square until the circle appears. Then they click inside the square to move it to a new location to line it up with the target square's center. Then they hover over a corner to see the highlighted circle. Then they click on the corner to resize and rotate. Even though we had visual clues to tell you where to click, the clickable areas were rather small. During testing, we realized that most of the time was spent fine-tuning your mouse to get the highlighted areas to show up. Borrowing experience from BakeOff 1, we made everywhere on screen clickable. So the square follows your mouse for translation, and then everywhere on screen will be mapped to one of the 4 corners. After more tests, we realized that we didn't actually need to track different corners for rotation. We initially thought removing the tracking would lead to rapid spin, but this turned out to be an unfounded assumption. The initial spin was rather natural, so we changed our design so that the mouse always tracked the position of the upper left corner. This eliminated the need for clicking to trigger step 2. After more testing, we realized we could reduce the number of confirmation steps. We changed the design so that if you're correctly matched in one step, you can click to the next step. Otherwise, mouse clicking does nothing, and you keep on adjusting. This is not snapping, of course, since we don't favor any position or any degree. In the final design, the cursor square follows the cursor from the moment the program begins. Then the user clicks the center of the target square so that the 2 squares are aligned and the square lights in green. Then the sizing and rotation of the cursor square is automatically started, and it follows the mouse movement of the user. When the user aligns the mouse close enough to one of the target square's corners, they are shown a green highlight to convey their rotation and size is close enough to the target, and they may start the next trial.